Alright girls, I'm going to pick up in the middle of the age of Jackson, starting with the bank war. So if you remember that the Second National Bank had been approved for its second 20-year charter, or the National Bank had been approved for a second 20-year charter, so we're on the Second National Bank at this point. And President Jackson was not a fan of the National Bank. He thought it was unconstitutional, just like Thomas Jefferson had initially thought it was unconstitutional. So he will actually win re-election in 1832. You don't have to know that year, but he's going to win re-election, and the bank is set to die, and the charter is supposed to end in 1836. He decides he doesn't want to wait for that to happen. He wants to see if he can get rid of it before the charter is even over. So he had his Secretary of the Treasury, whose name is Roger Taney, but you don't have to know that. If you see these men on the slides, these are just to give you an idea of who's in play right now, but you don't have to know who's who or their names. But Roger Taney, I always say, looks like some kind of character from Harry Potter. I don't know which one, but he looks very familiar. But he had his Secretary of State withdraw all federal money from the National Bank and deposited into state banks. This was about 20% of the bank's total stock, so he thought the bank would die after this. He thought it would collapse. But it doesn't. And instead, it just makes him look very questionable, very sneaky for doing this. Congress was very unhappy with Jackson for doing this and warned that he was becoming perhaps a little too powerful as a president. Alright, and he definitely displays his power in the next event, which we're going to talk about, Indian removal. So, white Americans in western states wanted all natives to be moved west of the Mississippi River. Keep in mind, when I say western states, I'm talking about the states to the immediate west of the East Coast, so like Georgia and Tennessee and Mississippi, Alabama, not really the far west, just west of the original states. Remember, natives initially were settling that area because that's where the proclamation line established that they could still live there. But now that America owns that land, they're settling it. And so they want the natives pushed further west out of their way, and they want them relocated across the Mississippi River. And Jackson, to be frank, is a racist, so he is okay with this idea, and the Indian Removal Act would be passed. So the Indian Removal Act is passed. This provided the federal government with land and money to relocate all natives to present-day Oklahoma and Kansas. Well, one group of Cherokee Native Americans are going to actually fight this. They don't think this is fair. They don't want to leave their home. So a group of Cherokee will take this to the Supreme Court. And that Supreme Court case is known as Worcester versus Georgia, as I have on the screen, but I'm not going to require that you know that for the test. So in this Supreme Court case, John Marshall is still the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is going to side with the natives. And the Supreme Court is going to say that the natives do not have the right, or do not have to be forced to be moved. Not that they don't have the right. The government doesn't have the right to force them to move. So the Chief Justice says they can stay where they are. And you need to know this quote, and as it is written on your screen, it is a quote from Andrew Jackson. It is his response to this ruling. He says, "John Marshall has made his decision, now let him enforce it." And what that means is, John Marshall said how he feels. Let's see if he's going to do anything to stop me. I'm still going to do what I want. And truly, the Supreme Court doesn't have the right to enforce their rulings because that's the president's job, and he's foregoing that. So checks and balances is not really working right now, and Andrew Jackson's just kind of taking on control himself. So he will force the natives to move. They don't move till some years later, but the Cherokee are forced to relocate to Oklahoma, and that trail becomes known as the Trail of Tears, as about 25% of them die along the way. Okay, what is Andrew Jackson's impact on American society? Well, he expanded the power of the president, for sure. We had not had a president before Jackson that used this much presidential power. I would add some given to him, some not. But he does become a very powerful president. He kind of sets the precedent, if you will, as president to be a more powerful leader. And then also I want you to know he contributed to a new political party. Now I told you that the people who supported him began calling themselves Democrats. But we have a new name and a new party that's built around people who do not approve of Andrew Jackson. And they are called the Whigs. So your second party system is the Democrats, aka those who liked Andrew Jackson and thought he was a man of the people, and then the Whigs, aka those who opposed Andrew Jackson and thought he was a tyrant. Alrighty, we are finished with this screencast. Watch it again if you need. Write down questions you may have. We're going to move on in class on Tuesday. Y'all have a great 3-day weekend.